We've got 4 college football playoff quarterfinal matchups to break down today. Do not bet any of them before you watch this show. Welcome, everyone, to the Blitz live here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. We're talking Miami, Florida versus Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, Oregon versus Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl, Alabama versus Indiana in the Rose Bowl, and Ole Miss versus Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, plus any other games you want to talk about between now and Friday in the bowls. If you're watching us live, feel free to drop those questions in at any time. I am, of course, Bryan Power, joined this week by the usual crew of Ross the Boss Benjamin and Ralph Michaels. Ralph, great to have you back this week. Ross, I am going to go to you first, however. Miami of Florida taking on Ohio State, New Year's Eve, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Largest point spread of the 4 quarterfinal matchups, and also the lowest total of the 4 quarterfinal matchups. So how are you breaking this one down, my friend?
Well, you got 2 great defenses, right? Ohio State only allowing 8.2 points per game and 213 yards per contest. Miami, I just think that they fly under the radar a bit, and they proved their worth in College Station last week in that win over Texas A&M, holding the Aggies to just 3 points on their home field. This is a Miami team that comes in red hot as well, 5-0 in their last 5. And during this 5-game win streak, they're only allowing 8.8 points per contest. So this is Ohio State has allowed 16 or fewer in all 13 games this year. They're allowing an incredible just 3.9 yards per play. That's just unheard of. And both of these teams are excellent in terms of stopping opponents on 3rd down, with Ohio State holding opponents to a 28% conversion rate and Miami at 31%. I just think, I know the total is low, but it's low for a reason. And it opened at 42 down to 40.5, 41.5, right in that area. I'm going to go under the total with this one here.
All right. You know what? I concur you. I'm going to be doing a full game preview of this matchup tomorrow on WagerTalk today with Andy Lang and Dan Alexander. And just a little tease, like Ross laid out, I expect this to be a low-scoring affair, particularly early on. Guys, this is a fascinating stat that I found when breaking the match down. These 2 teams, Ohio State and Miami, are number 1 and number 2 in points allowed in the first half. Ohio State allows just 3.9 points per game in the first half. Miami right behind it, just 4.5 points per game in the first half. Of course, I did cash the first half under in Miami's first round matchup with Texas A&M. Did not get any easier. It doesn't get any easier than that. Literally, it can't. It was a 0-0 tie going into the break. And I also had the Canes outright in that game. I don't think Miami, Ross, is going to have a ton of success offensively in this game. You laid out some of the stats, this outstanding Ohio State defense. Quarterback Carson Beck for Miami, I don't think this guy's just that good. Against A&M, the only real success Miami had offensively was finding some creative ways to get the ball in the hands of Malachi Toney. I think the Ohio State defense, with some extra time to prepare, is going to be prepared for that. On the flip side, if there is a concern for Ohio State in this game, guys, it's the right side of the offensive line going against a tremendous Miami pass rush. As we saw in that first round game against A&M that Ross just mentioned a moment ago, this Miami defense is just elite with Keontae Scott on the field. I'm no NFL draft expert, but Scott seems like a guy who will play well on Sunday. So I, too, would lean the under here, possibly the first half under, for the reason I laid out. These teams, again, number 1 and number 2 in points per game allowed in the first half nationally. Ralph, I know you've got a big play on this game. I'll actually give you the floor right now if you just want to tell the people about it. You've got so I'm going to go to you next for Oregon, Texas Tech. But if you wanted to take this time to talk about the game.
You know what, Brian, I will mention, you talked about the defenses. Mm-hmm. If you look at the Ohio State and Miami defenses for this year, it is likely that between the 2 defenses, we are going to have 6 first-round players drafted and 20 defensive players total drafted between these 2 teams in this upcoming draft. That shows you just how talented they are. You know, I do have a big 5% on this play. It's $35. I do want to mention my bowls, number 1 last year, 12-3. This year, my Bulls on a 7-2 run. That is a 19-5 combination, 79%. My NFL 13-6, and I want to mention this. If you're viewing live or you watch this tomorrow, Xmas 25 is still valid for any purchase, any capper, any package through New Year's Eve. Try college football in the NFL, normal price $219 with Xmas 25, just $169. And I do want to mention this. I was shocked. Ohio State beat Oregon in the Cotton Bowl. I was there with my son, one of my best memories with him on the field as a photographer. This year, this game is going for $31. These Buckeye fans are not showing up like they did last year. Why? Because they're saving their money for the next 2 rounds. The Orange Bowl, New Year's Day, average ticket $46. Cheapest ticket, $46. The Rose Bowl, Indiana, very excited with Bama, $98. SEC Country, Georgia, in the Sugar Dome, cheapest ticket to get in, $190. So it shows you the level of excitement for these arenas where they are relative to the teams playing.
All right. So speaking of Miami of Florida, let's talk about the Orange Bowl. Noon Eastern, New Year's Day. Time to shake off that hangover, everybody, because it is our second quarterfinal, Oregon and Texas Tech. Interestingly, and I'm eager to hear if you guys agree or disagree with this assessment, my power ratings say the wrong team is favored here. Oregon has taken a bit of money. They're up to -2.5. I have Texas Tech ever so slightly rated as the better team. I know it was a really bad beat for Oregon bettors in the first round. The Ducks probably deserved to cover that 21-point number against James Madison. That is the classic backdoor situation. Oregon had its way offensively early, but Texas Tech's defense is for real, guys. And just like the first game that we talked about, Ohio State, Miami, I think this is going to be lower scoring than expected. I just can't decide whether I'd rather bet first half or full game under. So, Ralph, I'll go to you because I know your best bet for the show is actually on this game. So you can lay that out right now for everybody.
It is. Let me just start with my best bet for the show is this game, first half under the total. Now, it's tough to quantify defenses when you're playing such weird schedules. But if you look at what a team does compared to what their opponents averaged on the year, it gives you a very good assessment of the team. Well, this Texas Tech defense is number 3 in the country. They're holding their opponents to 124 yards per game under what they've averaged the rest of the season. By the way, they have held 8 opponents to either a season low or a season number 2 low. We always talk about the Oregon offense. We know they're electric. In fact, they're the most efficient offense in the country. They're number 1 in the country, averaging 142 yards per game more than their opponents average. But we don't talk about their defense enough. They are top 10, holding their opponents under their average. They're actually number 9 in the country. Now, I actually have Oregon power rated 1 point better because of this. Oregon statistically dominant, guys. They played the number 17 schedule, and they're number 1 in the country at plus 2.9 yards per play. So remember that. Oregon, the number 17 schedule. Texas Tech has played the 67th schedule. That is incredible to have a playoff team play that weak of a schedule, and they were only number 5 in yards per play diff. But the real reason, these defenses and explosive plays. Texas Tech is number 11, allowing plays of 10 yards or more. They've allowed the 11th fewest. And versus plays 20 or more, they are number 5 in the country. You look at Oregon, their explosive plays on defense, they have been dominant as well. They are actually number 4 in plays 10 yards or higher, and number 3 in plays 20 yards or higher. We're going to have a big feeling out party here. It's early game. Remember, Oregon's going to be starting this game at 9 a.m. local time or 10 a.m. I may be heading. I'm about an hour and 15 minutes outside of Miami. It's going to be a beautiful day here. I'm going to go take this game in and enjoy a New Year's Day of football. But I do think that, remember, Texas Tech has not been there. Oregon has been there and done that. Yes, last year, again, the Rose Bowl, they play Ohio State. They struggled early. They only had 139 yards and 8 points in the first quarter. They ended up bringing that over. Texas Tech, brand new to the playoff situation. I think both teams are going to run a lot, run often, run early. I do like the first half under here.
Okay, so question answered there from Ralph. His best bet is for the show is on the first half under here in the Orange Bowl. What do you think, Ross? You also think it's going to be a low-scoring game? Oh, by the way, Ralph brings up made a point about Oregon being here before. Let's note this right now. I think it's a good time to throw this in. Last year, as you guys both remember, and I'm sure most of you watching remember, all 4 teams that received a bye into the quarterfinal round lost their first game. Now, of course, the playoff format has been retooled this year. Instead of the 4 top conference champions, it's the 4 just highest rated teams. So perhaps a little different. But Oregon, of course, was one of those 4 teams that got a bye, Ross, and lost in the quarterfinals. They ran into the eventual national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. So I know you think this is going to be a great game. Tell me what you're thinking about this.
Yeah, it's the best game. I think it's going to be the best game of the 4 quarterfinal matchups. And my best bet in this game is, since I found out that Ralph is going to be attending this matchup, is according to Dan Alexander, our producer, the total on Ralph's drinking beers is under 29 and a half, over or under 29 and a half Miller Lights. I'm going over the total with that. No,
Ross, but those are 12-ounce cans, right? So if I'm drinking 24 ounces, that counts as 2, correct?
Yes, that
Just
does.
checking. Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't want to
You are very
undervalue your
gracious, sir.
drinking
Thank
ability,
you.
Ralph. So anyway, Ralph drinks light beer to save calories, but he drinks 29 of them. It's just like me having 2 steaks and saying I'm not going to eat the next day. Anyway, let's get to the specifics of the game. All kidding aside, guys. Look, I really like this Texas Tech team, and I think they're not getting enough respect. I know that on paper, Oregon has played the tougher schedule, but defense doesn't lie. In this Texas Tech defense, Oregon's defense is really good too. However, okay, let's not forget last week, in their win over, or in the first round, I should say, in their win over James Madison, they allowed 34 points and over 500 yards of total offense to JMU. Now, they might have played softer in the second half with that big lead they had, but still, that to me is alarming because Texas Tech, not only are they great defensively, but they could score. This is a team that's scored 30 points or more in each of their last 7 games. And the Texas Tech defense is, I think, the key here. Number one, I look for little advantages, okay, in even matchups such as these. Texas Tech has forced 17 turnovers. 17 turnovers over their last, I believe, let me see here. Texas Tech. Yeah, over their last 6 games, they've forced 17 turnovers, while Oregon has forced only 17 turnovers all season. So, that to me, it's a telling sign to keep an eye on. Texas Tech, I like to win the turnover battle, and as we know as handicappers, or just as in general as football fans, usually the team that wins the turnover battle, especially in an even matchup such as this, comes out on top. And all 12 of Texas Tech's wins this year have come by 22 points or more. So I have a small lean here. At this point, I may make this a bigger lean on the premium side with Texas Tech. And I agree, Brian. I think the wrong team is favored. And I very rarely say that because I have the ultimate respect for the odds makers. But this is one of those cases, I think you're spot on. Let's put it that way.
Well, I appreciate that. Ross brings up the point about the turnovers. Let's stick with that here because that could play in, Ralph, to what we're saying. Turnovers, obviously, if Oregon's driving the ball and then Texas Tech could force a turnover, hey, that could be beneficial to an under. On the flip side, I'll throw one more strategy. Because Texas Tech, if there was one weakness with this Texas Tech team, they were not particularly efficient in the red zone this year. They settled for field goals a lot. We saw that in that first BYU game. I don't know if you guys remember the regular season game against BYU, where they settled for a lot of field goals. So settling for field goals, obviously also beneficial for an under as well. So there you go. Some votes for Texas
Bryan,
Tech in a low-scoring game. Yes, Ross.
Well, I want to share one more thing with the viewers because we were talking off air and Ralph said, I'm glad it's a 12 o'clock game because I have trouble driving at night. So he's going to consume 30 plus beers, but because he's driving during the day, he's going to be a lot safer. Anyway, I thought
you now don't be saying that I said that. You the one that said that. So
no, you said I can't drive at night.
I'm picking Ralph up. That's the story.
At night. It has nothing to do about drinking, Ross. It's just not seeing right. So, yes. Bryan, I do have one thing. Those people that say money cannot buy happiness, that's bullshit in Lubbock. They think money buys happiness.
Yeah, buys a defensive line. If defensive lines make you happy, then it is bullshit. Yes, because they paid a lot for that. That's it's the New York Jets didn't spend that much on the defensive line this year, I think, or at least the Raiders didn't, but maybe both. Who knows? So all right, there we go. That is the order, which we may have Ralph Michaels, president of the game. Look for him. Look for the pen on the broadcast when you guys are tuning in at noon Eastern there on ESPN. Guys, if you're catching us live, thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate that. Don't forget to both smash that like button, that thumbs up below me, and the subscribe button if you already haven't done so. If you're a regular here on WagerTalk YouTube channel, you should have probably already clicked subscribe. That way you get instantly alerted when we go live each and every week. I believe, and this is not confirmed, they will, I'm sure, speak into my ear by the end of the hour. But I think we're going to be back in our normal time slot, 1 p.m. Thursday next week for the college football playoff semi-finals. Ross, I'm going to let you have the floor here for a moment to talk about, obviously, one of the busiest times of year. Lots of not just college football, but we've got the final week of the NFL regular season coming up as well. So why don't you talk about what you've got going on in your neck of the woods over at WagerTalk.com before we get to the next two quarterfinal matchups.
Well, thank you, Bryan. I'm going to have picks in all premium picks, that is, in all four college football quarterfinal games. I will have a 5% best bet as well. And I've done terrific with my college football 5% best bets this year. I believe I'm 12-3 with those picks this season. Also, college football postseason picks, 8-3 so far to start the year, including 3-0 in the college football playoffs. Nothing new because since 2022, 48-24 with my college football bowl game and playoff picks. That's 67%, folks. And again, this year in college football, I'm hitting 63% of my plays since the start of the season. That's number one in win percentage, and also a net profit of over 61 units, which is number two in units earned. And since 2023, I've made 140 units of net profit in college football and hit 60% of my plays. That's number one in both win percentage and units earned over the last three seasons in college football. And right now, NFL heading into Sunday's action on a 24-14 run, which is pretty good, 63%. So a lot of good things happening right now. You got the NFL playoffs coming up. My weekend warrior package last week. For those of you who joined in, congratulations. We went 8-3 and made over 15 units. So a lot to like. You can go right to my direct link over at WagerTalk, which is wt.buzz/RB, wt.buzz/RB.
All right. A lot to like. I like that Buffalo Sabres
How about that?
Jackie, you got it. I just noticed that. There you go. The
9 in a row, baby.
There you go.
Ralph,
you want to say something?
For a guy that gives me crap all show long, I don't know why I'm trying to help him with his promos, but I'll just throw in a couple of 5% records as well, Ross. You're 12-4, 75% your last 16 5% overall. In college football, you're 6-1, 86%, and 12-3, 80% on top-rated 5% college football plays.
Thank you, Ralph. Just imagine if I treated Ralph good.
I know, that'd be unbelievable. I mean,
it wouldn't change one thing, my friend. It wouldn't change one thing.
I know.
All right. We're all friends here. And, interesting, we talk about, the weather could be a factor. I don't know. There's really no way to transition to this. So let's just get into it. Weather could be a factor at the Rose Bowl. Guys, have you seen these reports? Usually I'm settling in. I'm, kind of still shaking off New Year's Eve, a little bit of the bubbly when I'm watching the Rose Bowl on the couch. And it's just a beautiful scene to look at Pasadena, that game every year. Well, apparently there's the forecast isn't going to be that great on New Year's Day for Alabama, Indiana. Guys, keep checking that forecast to see if those reports prove true. But this is probably the most anticipated matchup of the day. I don't know if that's fair to say, but I'll say it anyway. It's 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And I'm going to just come out and say, I think this is a changing of the guard game as far as I'm concerned. I do not want to bet against Curt Cignetti here at all. I think, this is going to be Indiana. There's been a lot of doubters. This is a team I bet in the Big Ten championship game. People didn't think that they could handle Ohio State. They didn't 2 years ago. They came back. They beat Ohio State, knocked them off in the Big Ten championship game. Let's go back 2 weeks ago on this very program, guys. It was all three of us. We talked about the first round matchup between Alabama and Oklahoma. Everyone was betting Oklahoma in that game. The line had flipped. The Sooners went off as the favorite. I believe our general consensus, I know I felt this way, and I believe you guys both did as well, was that Oklahoma was kind of getting overrated in that game. Now we've got a situation where Alabama just burned a lot of bettors, okay? And here they are, an underdog again. But I look at the WagerTalk odds screen, and when I look at how this game is being bet, the ticket splits, if you will, a lot of the same bettors who were burned fading the Tide against Oklahoma, they now seem to be looking to take the points with the Crimson Tide here, yet this number has crept up from -6.5 to -7. Ralph, your thoughts on what we've seen, on what I just laid out there, or just your thoughts on the Rose Bowl in general, sir?
Well, you know what? The only way I could go is under, Brian, and you brought it up, and it was a great point. Let me just say this. The forecast for Pasadena New Year's Day is 100% chance of rain with up to 2 inches. That is crazy to have a grass field, that type of rain coming down. We might see just an old Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns, where, between the hash marks is nothing but dirt. It could really be that bad. So to me, that does change the game significantly. Now, the winds aren't going to be horrible. So sometimes that actually helps the offenses, more so on artificial turf, because the receivers know where they want to go. Sometimes quarterbacks slip and fall down. But with a grass turf, it really just depends. I mean, we really don't have any history. How many times do we have grass games for UCLA that are pouring rain or on New Year's Day? So I don't know that. So number one for me, the over's out of the equation, no matter who you like. Now, I actually think if you like the under, bet it now, because when we get to tomorrow and the big hitters start coming in and betting the playoff games with Ohio State, those that haven't yet, I think the under is going to be the way to go, especially for an Alabama offense that the last 3 weeks, I mean, this is crazy. I'm not talking about Alabama A&M guys. I'm talking about Alabama, 280 yards, 209 yards, 260 yards. That is 749 yards in 3 games and only 41 first downs. That is scary. The rush attack against Georgia, -3 yards. The rush attack against Oklahoma, 25 carries, 28 yards, 1.1 yards per carry. So, do I think Indiana's going to be able to run the ball? Well, they're averaging 221 yards per game this season. They're averaging 5.5 yards per carry. while we don't think of Mendoza as a mobile quarterback as the Heisman winner, he rushed 75 times. So he is very capable of taking off, which means either you have to put a spy on him or, you have to worry about containing his rush attack. So to me, running game, big advantage Indiana. Quarterback, advantage Indiana. When I look at the defenses, Alabama's rush defense down the stretch, 152 4.2 to Auburn, 141 3.4 to Georgia. They did slow Oklahoma to 55 yards. You look at Indiana. We made a joke about this a couple weeks ago. Indiana allowed 218 yards rushing to Old Dominion in the opener. Since that time, only one team has topped 100 yards, and that was Penn State, and they still only gained 3.5 yards per carry. Rain has me going only one way. I originally liked Alabama in this game, plus the points, figuring they can get a backdoor touchdown. But with a sloppy field and rain, that can get a team that's down at halftime very disenchanted early in the second half. Slight lean, Indiana. Neither side or total will make my card.
And, Ross, with the rain and the kind of the scenario that Ralph laid out there for us, it made me thinking, I've said this before. I said it in my write-up for the Big Ten championship game. I'm going to say it again right here on the Blitz. I think Indiana is the strongest team in the trenches in the entire country. That is the strength of this Indiana football team. I think a lot of people underestimated that going into the Ohio State game. So what do you think here about the granddaddy of them all?
Yeah, let's take a look at this first. First of all, I 2 weeks ago when we talked on the first round matchups, Brian, you brought up a good point. You said not only was Oklahoma overvalued, but they were the weakest power conference team in the field. And I agreed with you wholeheartedly. And boy, oh boy, nothing changed when you looked at their result. However, let's think about this. Alabama wins 34-24 at Oklahoma. Impressive, right? Well, not so fast. I mean, a little bit deceiving because in that game, the Sooners outgained them 362 to 260. And Ralph brings up a good point. Not only 260 yards in that game, but 209 yards against Georgia and 280 yards against Auburn. And this is a team that just has had a hell of a time running the football. I mean, 5 out of the last 7, they've rushed for 80 yards or less. And then you look at the other side of the ball, Indiana's defense, they've allowed 89 yards or fewer rushing in 11 of their last 12 games. And this is the more balanced team in terms of run and pass production in Indiana. You can make a case that Alabama played in the SEC. Okay, I get that. But Indiana, number one team in the country. Ohio State's not too bad as well. So it's not like they played cream puffs. They won at Oregon 30-20. So I like Indiana here. I don't think I said it on this show 2 weeks ago, and I'll say it again. Alabama should not have been in this field. They're in the field because of their brand. There's no way they should have chosen Alabama, who had a bad loss at Florida State this year, against a team over a team like Notre Dame. But now that that's done and over with, that discussion's over. Indiana, to me, clearly the better team on both sides of the ball. And I'm going to lay the 7 here with Indiana over Alabama.
Okay. Guys, we've got one more quarterfinal matchup to go. Ralph?
I just want to bring something up. We know the volatility of college football, so we don't talk about teasers. But there's some college football teasers where you can lay minus 120. So if you're like an Oregon fan or an Indiana fan and a Georgia fan, perhaps there's some teaser situations that you want to look at that, or the money line parlays. But, you don't want to pay the overjuiced price. A lot of the NFL places are high, but college football, some people still offer at very reasonable prices. And these lines, the way they're set up, puts a possibility out there if you're looking for that type of situation.
Very good point right there. We do have one more quarterfinal matchup to break down. I want to let everyone who's watching live now, or if you're watching us on replay, you can ask us about any of the other games that are taking place on New Year's Eve or Friday, January the 2nd as well. Of course, this is, after this, guys, we've only got 3 more college football games to talk about. Of course, the semifinals and national championship games. So there's a lot of other college football. If you're watching us live, I know we've got some games today as well. I can tell you that I don't have any strong takes on Tuesday's games, but I have a best bet coming up for my show. Best bet is going to be on a New Year's Eve game. Ross has a best bet coming up for a Friday game. So we'll have you covered Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday with our best bets. Hang on for those. But as I mentioned, one more quarterfinal matchup to break down, and it is an all SEC affair in the Sugar Bowl. Ralph mentioned it's a hot ticket in New Orleans earlier as Ole Miss takes on Georgia, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Nice neutral site game, close, not a far trip for either team, obviously. Very interesting handicap here. My power ratings actually say this number is a little too big, but it is worth pointing out when these teams played earlier in the season in Athens, Georgia closed -7.5 at home. Now they're -6.5 on a neutral field. You may be saying to yourself, if you're watching, hey, BP, Georgia won that first meeting, 43-35, and covered the spread. Fair point. However, let us not forget something, and that is Ole Miss led that game most of the way. Furthermore, I pulled this trend from Mark Lawrence's playbook, bowl rematches involving teams from the same conference. The team playing with revenge is 7-1 against the spread. Now, that one loss actually happened to be yesterday with App State, but vast majority of the others took place in these higher profile bowls, most of them with national title implications. So that all being said, I do wonder, Ross and Ralph, if, I mentioned my power ratings say this number is a little big, but I wonder if Georgia's peaking at the right time and my power ratings are selling a little bit short. A lot of sharp people I talk to seem to feel that Georgia is peaking at the right time. Ralph, you're a very sharp individual. How do you feel about the Sugar Bowl?
I'm on Georgia. Listen, when Indiana knew they were going to play Alabama or Oklahoma, but you didn't know who was going to win, so you had to prep for both of them. Mm-hmm. Ole Miss was playing Tulane. Georgia knew who they had to prep for. That's it. Their entire week off was prepped on one team, while Ole Miss did have to prep for Tulane last week. Same season revenge. Listen, you can throw revenge out the freaking window with the playoffs. There is no more motivation than being in the playoff quarterfinals. Doesn't matter if you lost 20 times to this team as a favorite. That's not going to give you extra motivation to win a playoff game. I just think this. I think Georgia's been here, done that. We have stability at the coach. Yes, Gunnar Stockton has struggled a little bit down the road. When they had 260 yards against Georgia Tech, I said, well, hell, they played Charlotte the week before. They had the SEC championship on game, but in the SEC championship, they only had 297 yards. What I do love to see is a defense over the last 4 weeks that has allowed 226 yards per game and 11.8 first downs per game. You look at Ole Miss. Ole Miss allowed 421 yards and 20 first downs to Tulane. The week before against Mississippi State, 440 yards. Yes, they survived without Lane Kiffin. Yes, they're excited at the new head coach, but they played that game at home. Now they have to prep the pressure of a quarterfinal. You don't have your traditional coaching staff in place to get ready for the next game. Georgia's been there, done that. To me, it's Georgia. Georgia, I have not loaded it yet. I can tell you guys this, Georgia will be a client play for me in one way or the other.
Okay. I want Ralph made a very good point there. I'm glad he brought it up because I think people they think back to the Ole Miss Tulane game, and it was quite one-sided, but Tulane did move the ball in that game. They just bogged down once they got inside the 40 and just weren't, in modern football, that's the deal. If you're not efficient inside the red zone, inside the 40, you're going to lose. And that was the deal. Tulane did have some success getting inside the 40, at least. I see RJ, one of our top people who's watched us, who's joined us all throughout the year. He likes Georgia's team total over in this game. What do you think here the rematch, the all SEC affair between Georgia and Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, Tulane, 421 yards of offense in that game. They were plagued by 3 turnovers, and not being able to convert on 4th down a couple times in scoring territory. But having said all that, look, revenge comes into play here, right? But Ralph, I'd love to know if you can come up with this stat, but same season revenge when it's a team's only loss. And that's the case. Ole Miss is playing with revenge from that 43-35 loss at Georgia. And that's their only loss of the season. However, I'm going to look at the total because I agree with Ralph's assessment on everything points toward Georgia here and all logical reasoning why, okay, especially the way they played defensively. But again, I can't lose sight of the fact we're looking at 78 points scored in this first matchup. And Ole Miss team that's really extremely good offensively, and I don't think losing their head coach is going to change that. The same talent's there, the same philosophy's there. And by the way, I can't talk about an Ole Miss game without talking about Lane Kiffin. Okay? So here's a guy who now jumps ship before his team goes to the playoffs and gets this multi-million-dollar contract, mega-million-dollar contract. He goes shopping for the first time in Louisiana, gets groceries, and he takes a bag, and they tell him, and he says, they tell him it's 20 cents. He says, I'm not paying for the bag. You believe this piece of crap? Unbelievable.
So I saw that on Twitter, and I was gonna send it to you, Ross. The guy gets paid all this
scumbag. Are you kidding me?
He just walked home with the basket. I'll tell you what, that's I don't know.
Schools keep paying him. Go ahead, keep paying him. The guy hasn't won a national championship yet, and he's the highest paid coach ever in college football, it seems like. Anyway, having said all that, I just think even with Georgia's gaudy offensive numbers of late, I just think the total of 55.5, considering what the first matchup produced, is low. I'm not crazy about this total, but I have a very small lean toward going over the total in this matchup. And I just can't pull the trigger on Georgia right now, Ralph. It's just that revenge factor and it being their only loss. And I just think Ole Miss has got to be very motivated. And, yeah, they only played Tulane in their last game, but they have a chip on their shoulder, I think, and I can't get by that.
Brian, this is Ross's secretary chiming in here.
Oh.
Of course, I have those numbers for you, Ross, as you asked for, sir.
Oh.
Since 2007, there's only been 17 times where a team has lost, and it's their only loss of the season. They're now playing with revenge. 8-9 straight up, 8-1 ATS. They are 3-13-1 over under. So 81% to the under in the rematch. BYU Texas Tech was one this year. Georgia Alabama was one. Those both went under. Last year, Georgia Alabama, Texas Georgia, and Oregon Washington, all 4 have gone under the last couple of years in those rematches with 1 loss.
Well, thank you, Ralph. As usual, you don't disappoint. Those numbers are pretty uninspiring either way, but still
real edge.
We're talking 17 times since 2007. So you're never going to base it on a situation that is that small of a sample size. But again, 3-13 over under number does make sense. You know this team well. You're likely a conference opponent. You're playing them for the second time, just like the second meeting in NFL division games. That familiarity does tend to lean to unders.
Yeah, absolutely. So my thought, as I'm sitting here and thinking more about the game, listening to you guys, I think if you do like the Ole Miss side, I think you can only bet them first half. I don't see a scenario, because we've talked about this on the program all year. Georgia has had that nasty habit of getting off the slow starts. I don't necessarily, they've sort of gotten over that a little bit. It wasn't a case in the SEC championship game, obviously, but I don't see a situation, at least and again, Ole Miss led the majority of the first 3 quarters in the regular season matchup in Athens. I just don't know if there's a scenario, guys, where Georgia gets up big and then Ole Miss claws its way back. That's sort of the game script in my head that I don't envision. I do see a world where if Ole Miss gets up early, Georgia might be a good live bet to come from behind and win like they did the first time around. So that, ladies and gentlemen, are your previews for all 4 quarterfinal matchups in the college football playoff here on the BLITZ. Please smash that like button. Show your support for the show. If you have any questions on any of the other bowl games this week, any specific bowl games you would like to hear about, please comment down below or forever hold your peace. But Ross and I both have games that we are going to talk about here for our best bet. In case you missed it earlier, Ralph has already chimed in with his best bet. It was the first half under on Texas Tech, Oregon in the Orange Bowl New Year's Day. Ross, if it's all right, I'll start us off because my game is on New Year's Eve. Here's a trend for you. Ralph, I think you know this one. It's probably not in your database, though, because it's not very technical. Bowl teams this year that had to fire their head coach for the hanky-panky are 1-0 against the spread after Ohio University beat UNLV. Look, it's no joking matter. It's no laughing matter. What happened with Sharon Moore at Michigan. However, I'm going to punch back at the market. I don't think anyone wants to bet Michigan this game. Well, you know what? I'm going to bet Michigan in this game. Very similar to the game I just mentioned, a game I broke down on WagerTalk today last week, the Ohio UNLV bowl game, the Frisco Bowl. I noted and I said, look, yes, I'm an Ohio University alum. I said, it's no homer. I'm not being a homer. The coach is gone. It was under scrupulous circumstances, but the players are all still there. And I didn't agree with the line move there. You take a look at this Michigan-Texas. It's not apples to apples necessarily, but they're not opting out for Michigan, really, unless if there's some sort of mass exodus that's going to happen at the last minute we don't know about. Meanwhile, Texas is without 7 defensive starters for this game. I think that these kind of situations have a galvanizing effect with the players that stay. If this was a regular season game on a neutral field, I would only have Texas favored by 1.5. I think Michigan stays within the number here. I'll take the points with Michigan against Texas on New Year's Eve in the, I believe that is the Cheez-It Bowl, to be said, while we're getting our sponsors right. So Michigan plus 7.5, my show best bet.
Brian, we often talk about in games that are not college football playoff contests, what team is motivated the most. And think about it, Texas, number 1 in the preseason ratings. Mm-hmm. And here they are, 9-3 and playing in a bowl game against a Michigan team that's also 9-3. I would be interested to hear you guys' comments on this. I'm not crazy about Kyle Whittingham being named head coach. Now, let me clarify. I think he's an excellent head coach. I think in the short term, it's going to pay dividends for Michigan. But when you hire a 68-year-old head coach, and I'm 68, so I don't want to throw stones at a fellow senior, but, how long is he going to be around? How many players are going to get talked out of going to Michigan by opposing coaches because who knows how long this guy is going to last. So, again, I like the hire on the surface, but I don't like it in terms of future. So we'll see.
You know what I think it was, Ross? And then I'll Ralph, you could chime in. I think it's an obvious, and it's so funny because I joked. My father-in-law came in on Christmas and he said, Michigan hired Whittingham. And I said, take a drink every time you hear someone on SportsCenter go, well, this is a guy who runs a clean program. And my father-in-law goes, they already said that. And I said, well, there you have it. I think that's what they wanted to hire a guy. It's a messy situation, obviously.
Coming from Mormon country, right?
Yeah, he is. Kyle Whittingham has a kind of a spotless resume. And I think they wanted to hire someone like that. Again, it is a short-term thing. Obviously, he's not going to be around long. He even said himself, this is kind of, the last dance for me. I think it's a situation for him to get to a team that can win a national championship. Not that Utah could.
They better
But-
be real good in the transfer portal too, Brian.
Yes.
Because I just don't see a lot of kids committing, 4 and 5-star athletes committing to a coach that he may retire in 2 or 3 years. You know what I'm saying? So
That was my thought is the age, and he's not known as a great recruiter because at Utah, he could get players in the 100 to 200 rankings that were good for Utah and can get them wins. That doesn't get you wins in the Big Ten when you're Michigan. You need the top 100, top 50 players. You need those 5-star recruits to be able to compete with Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State. So that is my concern. But the transfer portal doesn't concern me as much because Michigan has as much money as anyone, and they're willing to share. They just, but you can't. Well, Texas Tech sort of has proved that you can transform one side of the ball in the transfer portal in 1 year, but it's tough to do that on both sides of the ball in one season.
Yeah, and I want to bring up one. Let's talk about the coaches that are gone now for Michigan. Obviously, Whittingham coming in. I got to be honest. People. We've talked a lot here on the show the last couple of weeks about these teams that have these interim stabs and how they're lame ducks. Some of them have basically just shown up completely ill prepared to play their bowl. I'll say this. People around Michigan's program, I tell you this too, Moore was not the greatest head coach. He was far from it. And Chip Lindsey, the OC, who is also gone, he stunk too, to be honest with you. I think Biff Pogge's going to have this team. Biff is kind of a wild guy. I think he's the kind of guy you want as an interim in a bowl, I think. He'll have you motivated he's not a good long-term head coach solution either, but he'll have them motivated. And there's a lot of people who follow this Michigan team will tell you, Ross and Ralph, they played better in the games that Moore was suspended. The offense looked better. Now, some of that is the opponents they were against. They faced some lightweights. So we'll see. Obviously, Moore, Ralph, I see you smiling. Yes, Moore will always have that record against Ohio State that he can look at as well. But he has, I think, bigger problems, bigger fish to fry right now than that. Yeah,
well, I was going to say that, New Mexico, 452 yards, Central Michigan, 616 yards, and who was their other one? Oh, and Oklahoma, they had 288 yards. So, yeah, he looked better, but it is what it is. But remember how Bryce Underwood started as a young quarterback. So it takes time to build that. So, like I said, I think you're 100% right. Michigan needed the integrity hire, and this was the integrity hire.
All right. So we've got 2 best bets here for the show. Ralph Michaels, first half under, Oregon, Texas Tech. Bryan Power, taking the points with Michigan against Texas. Ross, the boss, please round us out here and give us the third leg of our show best bet.
Holiday Bowl on Friday, January 2nd between Arizona and SMU, 2 teams that come in at 9-3, identical records. And a very rare situation here for a bowl game, not a playoff game, but a bowl game where both teams, at least in the last 5 years, where both teams are pretty much not affected by either the transfer portal or opt-outs. Both rosters stay intact. Now, here's the thing. I'm really impressed with the way Arizona finished the season. SMU, to me, is very vulnerable here. I mean, you're looking at an SMU team that had 2 bad losses this year out of their 3 losses. They lose at Wake Forest, 13-12 as a 4.5-point favorite, and then with an opportunity to go to the ACC title game as a 13.5-point favorite on the road at Cal. They lose the game and lost it handily. They were outplayed thoroughly. So, but Arizona finishes the season 5-0 straight up, and I just think that they have all the momentum right now. And those 5 wins came by 17 points per game in a virtual even matchup such as this. If you can get minus 140 or lower as a money line on Arizona, take the money line. If not, don't hesitate to lay the 2.5 or 3 on Arizona here over SMU.
I like that play quite a bit here. Oops. Sorry, Dan. I got a little itchy trigger finger. Pardon me there. There it is. Okay, there we go. That shows me for trying to do it.
What do you need me for, Brian?
I'm sorry. I hit the button. I got very excited to do that. And then of course, I just showed the wrong graphic. All right. The Blitz squad right there. You see it right there. You just heard the man, Ross, the boss, Benjamin. He likes Arizona on the money line against SMU in the Holiday Bowl. Ralph, He's talking New Year's Day. He might be there, folks, rooting this one home for us. Oregon, Texas Tech, first half under 25.5. And then I like the Michigan Wolverines getting 7.5 against Tech. That number, by the way, is now trickled down to 7. If you're in the comments, I'll save you guys. Yes, I still like Michigan at 7. I would like them even down to 6, to be honest with you, in this game. Ross added a very salient point in there that, Texas, I don't know how thrilled they are to be in this game. Well, I think the Michigan side is going to be galvanized. Guys, I neglected it. I do see some of the questions on today's games. We'll get to those in just one second. We do all just want to remind you what we've got going on this week at WagerTalk.com. Shame on me. I forgot to mention here during the program. 8-2 start to the Bulls overall, 23-10 with all college football since November 1st. If you are watching this live, well, thank you. And you can get my next college football bowl winner for just $5 today only. Of course, that price will change at midnight Pacific time. It will go up, but we do have a 4% best bet. Our next bowl winner is for New Year's Eve going right now. So again, 8-2 in the bowls, 23-10 all college football since November 1st. Seeing it well. So there you go.
So, Brian, let me recap. You are 8-3 bowl run.
8-2. 8-2.
8-2. Ross, you're 8-3.
Yes.
My bowl run is 7-2. That is a combined 23-8 for the BLITZ Handicappers college football bowls. Nice job, gentlemen.
That's why they pay us to be on the show. We love it. So yeah, and you heard these guys. Ralph has the big 5% play. Ross locked and loaded as well. Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about? I did see that there was a quick question here. Dan, I will grab this here if you'd allow me. There are some Bulls. I have nothing on the Bulls today. This is like opt-out city on Tuesday on the Bulls, and there is a lot of variance. We've got questions about Tennessee and USC. Did either of you guys have anything to say about today's bowl games? Because I'm going to throw my hands up and say I hate all these matchups. I'm not betting them.
I broke down Tennessee and the USC game on WagerTalk today, so we don't have to rehash it. Go watch the WagerTalk replay for both of those games for me. Nothing on the Coastal Carolina, and I did pass as well today in college football, guys. There's 3 games that's on all day, but do the smart thing, money management. If this bowl game were played on a traditional Saturday with 60 games, would it be one of your top 5 plays? That's basically my rule if I use a bowl game or not.
Ross, anything for you?
I do have a premium pick selection on the Music City Bowl today between Tennessee and Illinois. It's up right now, and it's only $5. It's Tuesday, $5 Tuesday, folks. And Ralph has brought up our records in the college football bowl games, and I'm not going to bring that up again, but I am, number 1 in college football over the last 3 seasons in both win percentage and units earned, hitting 63% this year on my college football premium picks. Tennessee, Illinois, winning side up right now. And for those of you who follow me on WagerTalk TV, on my solo videos where I do a deep dive on games, I do have a deep dive on USC and TCU today. And you can get that by going to WagerTalk TV. I do have the winning side, and I break it down and tell you exactly why I came to the conclusion. So there you have it, Brian.
Brian, next year, if you have Ross and I back again, if we pay you enough, let me say this. If we bribe you enough to allow us to be back on the show next year again, here's what I'm going to do for the off season. Let's do a couple summer shows like we did, doing some things. Next year, when we have our early bird for college football, I will make one for 3 of us. You buy 2, you get 1 free. So you get all 3 of us if you're interested in following us. Now, that means you may get some opposite plays, and that happens. But again, it's not like we all handicap exactly the same way. So keep an eye for that. We'll make sure to bring that up in the summer when we do some summer preview shows.
Absolutely. And we're all looking forward to a big finish to this year as well. I think I'm going to have a pretty big play on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Just a little preview that some might say that you might want to go to WT.buzz/BP for that. Of course, last year on New Year's Day, well, we didn't have many better plays than we had on the first day of the year, guys, when we had Ohio State money line over Oregon in the Rose Bowl. That was a 5% play. Great way to kick off the year. We're going to finish 2025 strong, start 2026 strong as well. All 3 of us will be back next Thursday. We will have 2 games, just 2 to discuss. It might be a truncated edition of the Blitz. Who knows? We could probably talk for an hour about 2 games, but it'll be the college football playoff semifinals to handicap. We will see you then. Until next time, let's cash some tickets.